Now to introduce our presenter for the day. His name is Jared Hamilton. And I know Jared quite well. We actually work together on a daily basis also at Calvary Ferguson, but he's also has this, what's covered up, Hamilton Executive Coaching. What is it? Okay, Hamilton Executive Coaching as well. And Jared's just a very unique person that I think as soon as you start to get acquainted with him, you're going to love him just like I do. Very knowledgeable about all kinds of things, HR related, human resources related, talent acquisition related. I've spouted off and shared some things that sound like words of wisdom that didn't come from me in some of our prior meetings. I've learned many of those things, most of those things really from working with Jared for the last several years. So Jared has a really unique perspective. Today, we're going to learn about some of the things that he's learned over the years and having some really neat conversations with people in the C-suite, things that really make you valuable to them, people that then want to invest in you and help you get inside those rooms, those conference rooms, those offices where the big decisions are being made. And so he's going to share some really neat insights for us that I think can help us and that we can pass on to others and try to help them as they move up the career chain as well. So Jared, I'm handing it over to you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. I appreciate it. This means being recorded. Yeah, so we're gonna leave. No, just kidding. We've just got to find a way to get rid of that.
Just say, got it.
Well,
I don't think it's a touchscreen TV, but I can go poke it off. Just should I try it?
You have the screen.
Nope.
How do we say got it?
So happy. Yeah. Wow.
That's the problem. How do we say got it?
Which computer's controlling that screen? Is it that one or this one?
His.
You need to touch this one.
Say got it.
There we go.
There we go.
Got it.
Well, no, that took it off my mind, but now it was. How many financial type people do that?
Got it.
One IT thing you were.
Got it. Oh,
Awesome.
We've already made something happen.
we got it. That's good.
This is the room where it happened.
How many executives does it take? No, first of all, thanks to Brian. So that two words that made me a little nervous is that he said I'm unique and then he spouts off things I say. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I don't know how many of you know Brian well, but just the other day I was doing an exit interview with someone that was leaving, and this is a perfect description of the way people value Brian or organization. This is someone leaving the firm. It was someone going on to bigger and better things, and we're proud of people that come through our company and they have a great opportunity that we can't facilitate. We're like, hey, more power to you. We developed you into a great leader, but they mentioned Brian and they said, if Brian Valencia doesn't go to heaven, we're all in trouble. I was like, what better compliment can you get? So no, it's been a pleasure to work with Brian, and so he's just a great force in our office, and he mentors me just about as much as he claims that I teach him some stuff. So I learned a lot from Brian, but it's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I think that was like the best opener ever. So I'm going to get right into it. Because I presented this at an HR conference at NRG Center last July to a lot of HR practitioners. And the basis of it was, I'm just going to tell you, HR people are different. They just are. That's why I'm a person that does HR. I'm not an HR person. It's two completely different things. And you know what I'm talking about because you're financial executives and right? But a lot of people want to know, okay, how do you get in there? How do you, HR folks are like, I want a seat at the table. I want a seat at the table. I want to be in the room, So I'm Hamilton. I love Hamilton, the musical. And one of the most famous songs is In the Room Where It Happened. So I had to use it, if you're set, but that's where they want to be. Folks, middle management, they want to be in that corner suite when all those decisions are, and they want to know what does it take to get in there. And so, that's what I thought, that might be something good to learn based on my journey. And there was an inflection point or tipping point in my career. At a previous employer, I was working for an energy company, and I had been in an HR manager role for about a year or two. And we had a new CEO come in. You know what happens when a new CEO comes in? There's going to be some changes in about 100 days. And of course, some of the C-suite officials get moved over, get moved out, get moved somewhere new. And so there's some rotation going in. So my chief human resources officer that I reported up through got moved to a different spot. And we had an internal come over to be the new CHRO. I knew of him, but I didn't work with him a lot, but I knew of him. But he sends this email out to us after these organizational switches and says, hey, we need to meet on Monday. I want to know what your teams are doing, the goals, the objectives, your status, what the deliverables are like. We're going to present on Monday. Please have a slide deck ready. And we're just all piling in there. Everyone that's under that arm of his of the chief human resources officer. So that was obviously a little nerve-wracking because here we are. I mean, I got a weekend to put this thing together. And I call a mentor of mine. I was like, hey, so this is what's happening. I've got to give this presentation. Just kind of, can you help me wrap my head around what's going on? And he says 3 words to me. You're being evaluated. And that was it. Like he stopped talking. I'm like, okay. And I knew when he stopped talking, I knew what that meant. It wasn't like you're going to get a meets expectations or improvement needed on your, this is, and he expounded a little bit. He says, they're going to determine whether or not you fit the vision of the organization going forward in the role that you're in. I mean, that's a little sobering moment for me. So that changed the way I viewed the next steps of what I needed to do in my role and how I needed to present. And oddly enough, so what comes into my mind, this comes into my head a lot when I have to do some sort of deliverable or project or whatever. And it's going to be odd to you, but it'll make sense. So when I was in 8th grade, the summer of my 8th grade year, my dad forced me to watch video cassettes of this series before I got into high school. He's like, this is your one chore. You don't do it, no allowance for the rest of the summer. This is your one chore. Watch these videos. Okay, I'm dating myself by saying video cassettes. So the series was called Where There's a Will, There's an A. Okay, Where There's Will is by Dr. Claude Olney. And I watched him. I don't remember much, okay, other than 2 things. You got to take the test with the same pen that you wrote the notes for. Some mental thing, right? But there was another item. He talked about how to deliver projects or presentations or whatever your deliverables are going to be. He didn't call them deliverables. That's an HR word. But he compared it to ordering a milkshake at a restaurant. And he says there's various types of milkshakes when you order a milkshake. You go to one place and you might get a milkshake in a paper cup. We all know it. It's a Frosty at Wendy's. That's probably the best paper cup milkshake you're ever going to get. And you need to fix every once in a while. I get it. Don't feel guilty about those, but it's decent, right? Some restaurants you go to, you get a styrofoam cup, large. There's a place I love back in Kansas. We lived there for several years. That big old styrofoam cup. They wrote the flavor and a ballpoint pen on the outside. I can remember it. Crazy flavors. It was at Bogey's. I know the restaurant name. Great milkshake. Okay, it's styrofoam cup, whatever. It's Bogey's, right? $6, right? Now you go to some places, you order a milkshake, and it's a little different, right? So they're going to bring it out, one of those nice triangular cone shape. You're already nodding. You're like, yeah, I know milkshake people when I start going down this road because they're like, I know which one you're talking about, and it's Frosty, right? It's Frosty on the mug, and you write your initials in it. I write J and W because my wife's name is Whitney, so and then it's over the top with whatever stuff is on the top. And now you got the extreme places that put like a whole piece of pie somehow balanced on the top, right? And so that's not it. On the side, they serve you the stainless steel mug. And what's in that?
The extra.
The extra.
Yeah.
The extra. They got so. If you get down halfway of the milkshake that's this big and you're full, you top it off anyway, because you're like, what the heck, doesn't matter at this point, right? It's the extra. Okay, and so what Dr. Claude Olney was saying, you have a choice of what type of product you're going to deliver. You can deliver a styrofoam cup, or you can deliver a Frosty mug. So in that moment, as my mentor is like, you're being evaluated, I knew exactly what I needed to do for that presentation. And then the path forward. If I'm going to be evaluated the rest of the way, it's going to be Frosty Mug the rest of the way. So on the way, I'm driving all the way here. I'm like, better be a Frosty Mug presentation. You better have it down. You better know your stuff. The clicker should work, which is not anymore. It's the tech stuff. It's always the tech stuff. There we go. So that's what I wanted to do, is make sure that I was proceeding in that way. Is I was going to put together a Frosty Mug effort. So I don't know if there is a survey or an evaluation that you all give after these. You don't have to put anything except paper cup, styrofoam cup, or Frosty Mug. I know what you're talking about, right? Hey, styrofoam cup effort, Jared. Okay, that's great. If you put styrofoam cup, you just leave me. What would it take to be a Frosty Mug effort? That's all I would ask. But I understand that language. All right, so that's what I did going forward, right? Obviously, it was rather successful over the course of time. And so when I get into these conferences or these presentations, people say, well, what are the things that it takes? And as I started to think about this and start to build some sort of presentation, I thought, it's probably my positivity. I bet it's my charisma. I'm thinking about all these things that it takes to get into those rooms, because I was privileged enough and blessed enough to be able to be in those big decision rooms with the CEO, or the COO or CFO. I was in those rooms. And so I'm starting to think about, I'm gonna put together what it took. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I have no idea, because I didn't make the decision to allow me in the room. So what I did is I contacted 8 of those people that I worked with in some sort of way. I was like, hey, what'd it take? Why did you make the decision to bring me in that room? And a lot of you are in that room, right? And so, as I know, we have CFOs in this room, we have controllers in this room. You're making decisions about people that will come in this room. All right. So last time I gave this, it was a lot of HR people that were begging to get in that room. So it's a little different audience, but this is the kind of stuff you want to pass forward. Or what I was really excited about is if you completely disagree and say you're missing something, I certainly want to know, because I would like to pass that forward. But what I did is ask the people that were close to me, that trusted me to be in the room. And I'm going to give you fair warning. Okay. One of the survey respondents that I gave this the last time, it was kind of like a backhanded compliment. They said, very engaging material. Don't know that I believe the stories. Which was a great compliment, because it's all true. Okay. I have anecdotes that I experienced, and I'm telling you, it's 100% true. And I text one of the COOs there. I was like, you're not going to believe it. They don't think the story is true. He's like, do you need me to call them? I was like, no, let's not do that. But this is what I text all these executives. I said, hey, what skills or work styles, 2 or 3 is fine, because if you ask a CEO to give you 5 examples, they're not going to text you back. What skills or work styles did I exhibit that allowed you to trust me being in the room or have a seat at the executive table? End of text. They knew I was putting together a presentation. So this is who I asked. So 2 CEOs, 1 COO, and he is a CEO now. Was a COO at the time, CFO, Chief Human Resources Officer, CHRO, a general counsel. Okay, yeah, I even went legal, right? A senior VP and a senior pastor. Okay, here's the deal with the senior pastor. Senior pastor at a mega church. He thought I was leaving my company because I was upset. He's like, dude, you can come work for me. I'm gonna make you an offer right now on the phone. I'm like, whoa. No, I'm getting closer to home. I'm happy where I'm at, but I just want to move closer to home. He's like, oh, okay. I mean, he offered me right then and there on the phone. He was like, don't leave if you're mad. But he was going to offer me an executive pastor, kind of over all the HR people operations of his church. And I was like, no, I really need to get closer to home. But he was going to let me in the room. And so I asked him as well. So that's what I texted him, and they all responded back. Okay. And we're talking about banking, we're talking about professional services, we're talking about energy, you name it. It's different executives, right? Male, female, about half and half of who I asked, and definitely different personalities, way different personalities. All right. So didn't know what I was going to get. I was like, this will tell me, is it my positivity? Guess what? No. Not one person said anything about positive, right? So which shocked me. I thought for sure it would be charisma and positivity. Nope. None of those. Wasn't their top 2 or 3, which was amazing to me. But however, what I did find is every comment they made, all 8 of them fell into one of 3 buckets. Okay. It was clear. I was actually, I still get the chills now thinking about when I started to get those text messages back. I was like, did I accidentally text the group and everybody's copying here? Or because it was just the same thing, right? So confidence, planning, relationships, those 3 things. Every quote, and you're going to see them all. Every quote came into those 3 buckets. I mean, it was very clear, very easy. Those were the 3 keys that allowed them to trust me to be in the room where it happened. I'm sure positivity helped, but at the end of the day, that's what they were seeing. Okay. However, I mean, think about it. Like no one, me anyway, I don't think like that. I don't think like, well, it's time to put on the confidence pants this morning. Okay. That's not what I was thinking and doing, because I want to know, okay, what was I thinking and doing? Right. Well, let's take a look. Here's what they said. These are copy pasted from the text messages. All right. Confidence. So put confidence. Okay. You know, that's a CEO that takes that back because they're not going to waste any words. Right. Willingness to challenge peers and execs. Resilient, thick-skinned. They didn't know what I was feeling inside. Confident, stature, presence. They didn't know what I was feeling inside. Direct, which I appreciate. Intentional. Yes, they put the exclamation point on that. That was kind of cool. Ability to shoot straight regardless of the message. That was really cool. Right. So those were the text messages that I was getting back. Right. So, but here's the thing is you think about it, I don't walk around and go, well, I'm going to be thick skinned today. Here's my thick skin. This is what it looks like and feels like. That's not what I'm thinking. But here's what I want to ask you. Okay. And I'm a coach at heart, so I ask questions. And if I talk for 50 minutes, it's going to be awful. And I need to like take a sip of coffee every once in a while. I don't need coffee, but I like it anyway. So what I want to know from you all, because a lot of you exhibit these types of skills, what do you do where others will perceive you as confident? What's your approach? What do you do? What's your thing? Anyone can answer, plus folks in remote land.
I'll go.
You're allowed to answer that one.
I am. Okay.
They're just, I'll tell you when you're not allowed to answer.
All right. Thank you. Well, one of the things that I have had to do is to not listen to the tape that just wants to naturally play. Right.
Ooh.
The tape that naturally plays in most of our heads has a lot of negativity about ourselves. Right. I'm not as thin as I want to be. I'm not as smart as I want to be. I really messed that up. You know, I switched lanes without signaling, whatever, made somebody mad, maybe made a gesture at me. You know, you're playing this tape, and if you let that tape play, it'll drown everything else
That's
out.
good.
It'll drown everything else out. So you got to say, nope, that's not what I'm listening to. I'm going to concentrate on what I need to convey, what information I need to do to be helpful, to
Good.
make this meeting productive or whatever it is.
That's
So,
good.
That's me. That's
Go
my-
for it. Yeah.
For me, and I try to tell this to all of our new people that it's okay not to know. And it actually helps you build relationships because people do actually want to help. So they know if you say, you know what, I don't know that, but my team does. We've got 100 years of experience here.
Yeah.
And so, but can you, I mean, I've been doing this since the dawn of time, unfortunately. And I still have to say, I'll have clients call and have no idea. I don't understand the business. We have like a crypto client here. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to dumb it down for me. And I think that builds, you have to be confident to be able to do that, right? To say that you don't know. Because they can sniff out if you're just trying to act like you do. Right.
Right. And think about the opposite feeling is that's the most vulnerable thing you can say is I don't know. And in the moment you're like, here's my confidence. I don't know.
It's hard.
It's not a
very
feeling of
difficult
confidence.
sometimes, but it's hard to do, but it works.
But when you say that and I'm in the room, I'm like, wow, okay. Right. There's some confidence there. So here's what I was doing and feeling. All right. This is just what I did. Okay, that I believe resulted in those. First of all, my reading, what was behind some of my thought processes, right? Some people I leaned on, Patrick Lencioni, Five Dysfunctions a lot. His new book, The Motive, is fantastic. Okay, very simple. John Maxwell, of course, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. That was some of my background. Kim Scott, she is the author of Radical Candor. That is a fantastic book about being able to deliver feedback and being able to be to exercise candor in how you talk to people, but caring deeply, but challenging directly is her motto. Margaret Morford, Management Courage, very thin book, probably one of the more valuable books that I've read when it comes to just that early start of management. And the book of Nehemiah from the Bible. Okay. Chuck Swindoll wrote a book called Hand Me Another Brick. That is one of the best examples of leadership patience, business case building, team building, conflict resolution. It's all in there. It is all in there of how to prepare, how to build teams, how to deal with adverse situations and basically naysayers or challengers. So that was a little bit of my backdrop. That was what kind of fed my mind and my soul when it came to the positions I was in. Carolyn Burke, she just retired, I think, from CFO, Chevron Phillips. So I was talking to her, I was like, hey, what is it that kind of got you there? I mean, what can you pinpoint as to how you felt about, what you were executing? I stole this. She let me steal this from her. She said, well, I always just felt like I was running to the chaos. It's kind of what you were mentioning, right? Being in a room with people that you don't technically know what they're talking about. It's a little bit chaotic and uncertain. She said, I just always found myself there, just running to the chaos. I'm like, that's fantastic because I feel like I'm in a chaotic environment every day. So I'm stealing that. And then, so I pitched in college. I wasn't that good, so don't get amazed. But John Denny was a pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies with Cy Young Award winners. He was my pitching coach one year. And before a pretty important conference game, he asked me, he says, hey, are you nervous? I was like, yeah, I'm nervous. He says, well, that's good. He says, I'd be worried if you weren't, because those nerves, those butterflies, that's what's actually your body. That's what your body does to prepare you for performance at a high level. He says, so it's okay. You need to understand when you feel that, that's good. I was like, oh, well, that's good. Because a lot of us feel like that means we're uncertain. That means we're not confident. That means we're not in the right place. That changed the way I viewed all those nervous moments. All the way through my career, I remembered what John told me. So when I got into those situations, I was like, this is okay. This is okay to be in. All right. There was a particular situation. I kind of reviewed the whole transition of the corporate C-suites at the previous employer that I was in when the new chief human resources officer was over me, and they had just brought in a new COO. And apparently there was a problem between the CHRO and the COO, because we got an email from the CHRO that had a large data request because he was very unhappy with the decision the COO made. Right. So very unhappy because the email, they said, hey, I need all these things as soon as possible. Okay. And he ended the email with, and I'm not kidding you, because I want to make sure I aim before I fire. Seriously. Yeah. You see all the dysfunction and inappropriate and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh boy.
This is going to be good.
No, gets worse. It gets worse.
This will be in court someday.
Yeah. So as I'm looking, there was a particular manager on that email that he sent that to, that 2 weeks earlier had just transitioned into operations and was now reporting to the COO. Now, I knew this manager, great guy, fantastic individual, extremely loyal. So I knew exactly what was going to happen to that email. Do you guys know what's going to happen to that email? What's going to happen to the email?
Share with his new boss.
It's going to the COO. This is on a Sunday afternoon, by the way. So I'm at my front yard Sunday afternoon. I'm like, I have to call my CHRO now because I guarantee he did that out of habit. Because that person was in our group for years. I was like, hey, so Kevin's on the email. And yeah, I'm terrified. And I was like, COO is going to get that pretty quickly. So you may want to make a phone call and put some context to it. And he was so understanding. I mean, he was just obviously got emotional. He's like, man, Jared, I appreciate the call. I'll take care of it. I'm like, great. Do my part. 2 weeks later, I'm in the COO's office. And we had a good relationship. I kind of handled all the relocation when he came in, and we like to just kind of talk about leadership development, what we were doing. We were starting a new initiative and a new education program. So we were going back and forth about that. I just love talking with him. And it's towards the end of the day, it's just me and him in his C-suite office. And so he's like, so when do you think we'll launch? I was like, maybe next quarter or whatever. Just, we've got to do a little bit more planning and get ready. And he looks me square in the eye. He says, yeah, you want to make sure you aim before you fire, don't you? This happened, folks. I know this is the one people don't believe. This happened. And I was like, I want to melt into the wall at this point. And he said, I saw the email. I said, well, I figured you would. And he said, what I really want to know is, why didn't you loop me in when you had the chance? I said, well, when would I have done that? And he says, a week ago, I called you just to check in, see how things were going with recruiting and what was going on with the open positions. And I asked you just, how's everything going? You had an opportunity to loop me in on this, and you didn't do it. I want to know why. Okay, so I'm a coach here. I'm going to let someone take this one. You're in the room. What's your response? Who wants it? Who wants it? You can't go away. I couldn't just say, you know what? I pass. I'm out. No, he's just staring at me, wants a response. How do you respond to that?
I really need to go to the bathroom.
If you're online, if someone remote wants to take it, that's fine. But you're there. And by the way, you're running out of time because you wait much more than 10 seconds. Now he thinks you're not cut out.
My answer would be easy. I
Go for
would
it.
have expected you to deal this directly with the CHRO.
I actually really love that answer. I love that answer. I think that's spot on too. Not what I did. So close though. Okay, if you read any of Lencioni's stuff, you know all the dysfunction that he basically created right there. So I said, let me understand something. I was like, you wanted me to undercut my CHRO, run to you and tell you and just back channel like that? I had enough leadership conversations with this guy, so I was like, I can't do that. So he stares at me and says, yeah, I know. I'm like, oh man. So yeah, now I need to go to the bathroom, right? So I know some of you are probably like, that guy's a jerk for doing that to you. Total jerk. However, if you know the backstory about how much dysfunction, back channeling, and political stuff that was going on in the organization, he was brought in to start ferreting that out. I didn't really put all that together at the time because I had known the guy for 4 or 5 months, and I was in that moment where I'm like, here's my job right here. This is the number 2, just brought in by the new CEO. And so I did what I thought I was built for, right? And if it was going to cost me, it was going to, that's what was in the moment. So ain't no confidence there. I didn't feel confident. I didn't go like, well, no, I was like, here it is. Heart racing. But I knew I was like, I'm supposed to be here. This is where I'm supposed to be. That's all I could muster up. I know what I know, and I know it's not right, but I'm scared to death. Right. And so when they say confidence, willingness to challenge peers and exec, I don't know if that's willing. I was able, two different things, right? But so those are the things that are going through, but without this type of preparation internally, I'm not there with it. I'm not thinking confidence. I'm like, I'm going to go challenge the COO today. Okay. Because those moments, they're snap decisions in the moment that you got to be ready for. Planning. All right. So this is what they said. Here's their actual quotes. Situational awareness, knowing when to talk and when to listen. That's a shocker. Preparedness for your audience and your sponsor. We knew what was coming. That's interesting. Focused in meetings. I know you won't be surprised. Asking the right questions, willing to listen, strategic mindset, always thinking moves ahead. I would have never thought these types of things would be as valuable as 2 or 3 work behaviors that allow you to trust me being in the room. You know, but when I saw them, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. If you're a CEO or a CFO and you've got those people in there, you want that. That makes a lot of sense to me now. Okay. You guys will get a PDF of this too. I know you're taking screenshots, which is fine. That makes me feel good, but you guys are welcome to have this. Now, I mean, obviously this isn't stuff I was like doing or thinking, feeling, right? As we know, but here's what I want to ask you guys. Okay. And Brian, you can't answer this one because you answered the last one. Okay. Understand?
Got it.
Okay. Clarity. What does planning look like, feel like for you? Like before you get into those rooms, I mean, what's your trick? What do you do? Because honestly, I'm gonna steal it because that's the idea sharing. What's something that's your go-to, like, this is what I'm gonna do. This is how feel like I'm ready.
Yeah.
Delegate.
It's your turn.
No, I mean, it definitely takes place before you even go into the room. And for me, it's just always trying to be on top of my profession, my business. Where can I add value to people?
I like that, add value. I'm writing these down because they're good.
We could make athletic comparison.
You hate me?
It's kind of like
I would
a
say
ball
maybe
player,
it's-
you're visualizing the win. So you visualize what you need to get there. So you kind of visualize the role. So you visualize the situation. How I'm gonna pass the ball here, or hit the home run here, or whatever. You visualize it before it happens. That's how success happens. That's overall planning. So that's the way I look at it. You visualize.
So, okay, this is intriguing. I want to know, when you visualize, what do you see?
The path to get there. So do I need to lift more weights? Do I need to increase my bat speed? Do I need to, whatever it is, you visualize the path to getting there. And so when you get into the room, it's like another day. It's ordinary. You just zoom right in. It's like practice makes perfect. It's all that you visualize before it happens. That's what's truly success happens.
So instead of the weights and the bat speed, you're visualizing what people and resources you're needing to accomplish the objective. That's really good. I like that a lot. Similar. So here's what I was doing, right? This is what I was doing, and it resulted in those things, obviously, but I mean, I didn't think about those things. All right. So when it comes to how I plan getting into those rooms, I do 3 things, and I still do this to this day. Audience, agenda, and awareness. Okay. I planned for this. Okay. At a high level, I knew I knew the acronym of FANG before I got here, even though, right, I knew it was, well, these aren't like middle managers, HR practitioners. These are financial executives. So, be prepared. Right. So, I know my audience. Outlook tracker. I stalk that thing right before I walk into the meeting. I want to know who accepted and I want to know who declined. And if they don't answer, I count as accepted, maybe disengaged, but they've accepted, right? So I know who's going to be in that agenda. I want to look at the agenda. I was looking at this agenda. I'm like, it's announcements at 8:15, 9:15 is me, and then make sure I'm about run 50 minutes. So that way there's 10 minutes to talk. Don't run over because financial executives get upset if you waste their time. Get it. Okay. So it's agenda. What's going to happen? What are the decisions? If there is no agenda, I'm thinking no meeting. Like, you don't have an agenda. What are we doing? And we're just going to get in there and drink coffee and think about what we need to think about. I need to see an agenda so I can prepare correctly, visualize, right? And then there's the awareness piece, right? So I have a general awareness of what's going on in the organization. All right, because if I'm walking in that room and the IT manager is going to be there and we're in the middle of a huge ERP transition and it's 7:30, and I know they were working till like midnight, I know that his disengagement has nothing to do with my presentation. It probably has to do with they're in the middle of an ERP transition, or maybe we got hacked, or maybe the patch went wrong and he was up there at 2 a.m. So I can't look into the nonverbals of my IT manager like, oh man, he's not paying attention to me. Or he's on his phone the whole time because all his folks are just having a heart attack over there with a hack. Organizational awareness. So that's what I'm walking into and visualizing. I do that to this day. Let me rephrase. I try to do that, right? Because you don't get it right all the time. All right. And the way I do that is a 1-to-1 meeting preparation ratio, where that means I plan 1 minute for every 1 minute meeting. If it's a 30-minute meeting and I'm a major stakeholder presenter, I'm spending 30 minutes in prep, at least, right? It's going to take me more if I have to develop content, but the planning piece is, what am I walking into, right? So I always try to not go back-to-back meetings, because that just means I need to prepare way ahead of time. If it's an hour-long meeting and I'm really running it, I'm planning for an hour, okay? Because that just sets me at ease. Right. And it works. Okay. So that's my method. That's just what I've always done. I can't remember where I heard that, but it was genius. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So just walking in, I mean, the visualizing time, when you walk in, like these folks here that don't accept, and they walk into a meeting, and you've all have seen this. They'll walk in like, oh, I didn't know you're going to be here. You're like, they have no idea what's going to happen in this meeting. They don't even know who's going to be in here. You already know their brain's somewhere else. They're working on it. You just know, hey, what are we talking about today? I'm like, great, you prepared.
Jared, I see if you're leading the meeting or expected to be presenting during the meeting, that situational unawareness of who didn't accept but might show up really gets you.
Oh, yeah.
That's the worst, right? Is somebody that you thought, well, they're not going to be here, so I'm not going to worry about any of the stuff I would have to do to be prepared to answer their questions. And then they're in the room. You're on your heels the entire time dealing with that, right? And of the 3 A's you have, their audience, agenda, and awareness, I think the hardest one is awareness, right?
Oh, yeah.
I see plenty of people get ready for a meeting. They're like, okay, I know who's going to be there. I think I've got the right content, things I need to share with them. I've got an agenda, but then they're like, I'm getting through this agenda. I'm not looking up. I'm not paying. I got to get through this agenda.
Yeah.
I'm prepared. I'm going to, and they may miss that I think you said the IT director is like completely distracted, might completely miss it, and need to tune into that, because everybody else sees the elephant in the room. They're like, they're not getting anything, right? They're like, this guy's completely distracted. All you're doing is getting through your, and
Yeah.
the meetings, it's a wreck because there was no situational awareness, right? That's the hardest one.
It is the hardest one. But if you spend this time, it's not that hard. In my opinion, it's just never been that hard. It's like, okay, I've got to meet. You try to score a meeting with Brian on April 10th. Good luck to you. But if you do, you better be concise with any person in tax, with any tax partner. If we're recruiting somebody and I need an answer about, you can't go in there like, hey, did you see that game last night? They're like, what's the point? Why are you in the office? Like, need a quick question. Even if it's the ad hoc, I'm like, I know the season we're in, right? And I know why it looks like they have bloodshot eyes, because they were probably here till 2 and I'm going in spry at 9 a.m. Like, I had my full sleep. Why didn't you have yours? So it's that awareness, but it is hard. And so if you're not spending this time, it's like, and I'll be honest with you, again, I screw it up. Okay. And because the nature of our job, sometimes we pack it up. Shortly after I started at the firm, is 4 months in or whatever, we were working on an initiative. I was working with the executive director of marketing on this, and we had I set up a meeting with her and the managing partner, and I mistakenly did some back-to-back meetings, because I'll do my planning the night before. I just didn't, because I was tired. It's like, I'll get up early. That didn't work out. I got 4 kids. They're all running all over the place. How that happens. So I'm like, okay, this is, you know, I think it was like a 10 o'clock meeting or something like that. And I was like, oh man, it's just, I just knew it. And I was like, okay, I'm like 3 minutes looking at the agenda I have. So I walk in there, I start presenting, and you've been there where you're throwing out every cliche you got. We're looking into that. Also, because the managing partners are firing questions. Here they come, right? Firing questions, like looking into that. We're considering that, and we're probably going to do that about 90% there on that. 90% there on that. Yeah, well, we'll check into that. I mean, it just feels awful, and I kind of look over at the executive director of marketing, and she knows already. She's like, so we leave the meeting, and one thing that I love about my managing partner, Jason Ferguson, his immediate feedback is some of the best, and it's immediate, right? And I know he's got a stacked day, and so I go back to my office, and I mean, shortly after that, I hear my door open, door closed. He's like, "You weren't prepared for that meeting, were you?" I was like, "No, sir." So. But this is what's great about his immediate feedback. It wasn't critical, it was solution-based. He says, that's going to happen. He says, next time what you need to do is just extend the courtesy to say, hey guys, I'm not prepared for this at all. We can either think through this, or if you want me to reschedule, happy to do it. He says, because we understand that happens. Because what you did by deciding to go ahead and go through the meeting is you wasted 3 people's time when you could have just given us the option to say, do you want to carry through with it, or do you want to reschedule? And then you could have saved us both an hour. I was like, that's fair. And then he left. That's because he had to go to his next meeting, but that's immediate feedback. So because I didn't do that, and I mean, he was asking questions that I would have known the answers to. I just needed the time and the prep. I just needed that, because no one's going to speculate. You're not going to say yes if you're not 100% sure it's yes to a managing partner, right? So, but I just didn't take the time. I knew it right away. I knew it like, no ratio there. I'm cooked. But I didn't think about, hey, why don't we give them the courtesy, right? But that's what I mostly do, and I believe that's what they were seeing. Is just I was just planning. I was just preparing. I was just looking at the audience and know what was going on in the organization. Our relationships. Here's what they said. Okay. Complementary business knowledge. Perspective broader than your responsible area. That was cool. Able to convert HR BS into business speak so as not to lose the audience. Who do you think said that out of all those?
Operations.
COO? No.
Yeah.
CEO, CFO? No. Actually,
General counsel?
no. At the first one of the sessions I did at the HR thing, they're like, the pastor did. I'm like, no, it wasn't the pastor. Chief Human Resources Officer. Right? The Chief Human Resources Officer came from compliance and safety that came over. That meant a lot to me. Ability to build relationships, quickly helped establish trust, high level communicator, eyes and ears of the employees, keeping C-suite grounded. That was really cool. In the trenches. Obviously, I'm not, well, it's time to be the eyes and ears. So let me walk around, and that's kind of creeper-esque, right? I didn't know that's what I was doing. I didn't know that's what they saw, right? But that's what they said. So that was the value of that. All right. So question to you. Okay, now I need someone to be like we're going to dialogue a little bit with one of you. Okay, I want you to think of someone that you would ask for advice. You're in the moment, it's tough, but it cannot be someone in your company like that elder mentor peer that you would like. You're jammed up in a professional setting, not a personal one, jammed up. You've got to make a decision. Who's your person like right off the bat? It's like, it's going to be this person. I want you to think of that person right now, like have it in your head. Okay. The first question I would ask you is, are they like you? Do they think like you, talk like you? Are they like you or are they not? Okay. It's okay. It's always good to have someone that's not like you, but I'm just curious of that. But everyone's got their person, right? You have your person. You're in a jam, corporate jam. Okay. Someone that's very comfortable dialoguing with me is going to be my example. It's not you. You're gonna have a conversation with me.
Unless anyone else wants to.
You're the first to raise your hand, so you're going for it. Okay. Remind me of your first name.
Alex.
Alex. Okay, Alex. You have your phone on you? Okay, take it out. You gotta be a brave soul.
Pictures for you.
No, I'm not doing anything. I'm not gonna look at your phone. Okay, what's their first name? I don't need a last name.
Robin.
Can you get Robin's contact on your phone up? While she's doing that, when I gave a presentation, very good. When I gave the presentation of the HR thing, they're like, well, they're not in my phone. I'm like, then they're not a person for you. No, I'm not lying. They're like, I don't have that contact in my phone. I'm like, that's your person? Okay. When's the last time you called or text them? Do you have that? Like, can you look in your history? I'll trust you on that one.
But,
Okay, we don't need to know the
Okay,
content of that
awesome.
conversation. Excellent. That's excellent. So the rest of you, I would ask, when's the last time you connected with that person? And I go back to what Brian was saying earlier. That's important on the relationship piece. We don't need to have like a session here where we're all, being vulnerable about not contacting our people. But when's the last time you connected with that person? Okay, if it's more than 3 months ago, that may really not be your person or one of your people. And that's where I would challenge you is like, you need to have your people because that's not a person. 1 week ago,
This morning.
yeah, one of the,
This morning. Mine
Yeah.
was this morning.
yeah.
Before I ever got to the meeting, I already had contact with him.
So the COO in the story, I texted him yesterday. I'm like, hey, I get to tell a story tomorrow. And I was just telling him, I said, every time I remember that, I'm amazed at how well you were able to keep your composure throughout all the political stuff. And he just texted me back. It's like, it was difficult, but that's what I would say is, are they in your phone and can you call them right away? This group, I imagine you're pretty solid with your group. Okay, but here's what I was doing and feeling. So good job, Alex.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Failing.
Okay, and that's
She
fine.
hired me when I was.
Wow.
She's also a Vistage coach. now.
Awesome.
You might know that.
Vistage.
Robin Stanley.
But that's what I was like. I was really impressed with what Brian was saying, and it's so true. If it's been 7 or 8 years, how are you going to call a person for the favor? It's like, because you know what they're thinking while you're calling, right? You need something, right? So you ought to see my.
Still thinks that.
Yeah, but you've developed a relationship where she enjoys giving that to you, right? Because you're appreciative. You want to see my phone on Christmas? Like, I've got the list of Christmas texts. I mean, it's like I find the time during the day. I'm like, I'm gonna text all of those people. Hey, Merry Christmas. I mean, it's like I mean, yes, I copy paste, copy. Merry Christmas. Hey, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Okay, because I mean, I appreciate them, but those relationships mean a lot to me. All right. But here's what I was doing and feeling. All right. Peer groups and committees that aren't HR related. I was in HR. That's fine. I got enough time with HR people every day. So I sought out these committees. Again, I wasn't thinking I need to seek out committees because I need to be the eyes and the ears. Not thinking that. I'm like, I want to not, just be one mindset. I'd like to just be part of different groups and see what other people think. All right. The peer groups, not necessarily sponsored by an organization. I was in a small breakfast group. It was myself, the general accounting manager, the technical training manager, and IT manager. We met for breakfast like once a week, once every other week. at 6:30 in the morning and just, we would go through a book and we just sit there and talk about challenges or it wasn't paid for, the meals weren't paid for, it wasn't at the company, it was, this is what we wanted to do to plug in, to kind of grow in our thought processes. And the company actually said, hey, why don't you have that at the office and we'll bring in the breakfast. We're like, no, because what happens when you deliver food for people? Everybody shows up for the food, right? So it's like, no, we know that if you're there, you want to be there, especially at 6:30. Right. And that's what we desired out of that group, because we invited everybody. We're like, hey, we just kind of, the manager group, come on, we'll be at this place, breakfast 6:30. And obviously some managers are like, oh, I got, stuff. Drop-ins at all levels. Didn't matter your role, didn't matter manager, payroll clerk, whatever. If I'm going over there, I'm just kind of like knowing people, yes, it does fit my personality a little bit, but I really didn't have a reason to go to the accounting clerk other than at least she was kind of cool. I mean, she was a grandmother and she always took her grandkids to Disney. And so I'd be like, hey, how was Disney with the grandkids? She just light up and talk about it, right? I mean, it was nice that when I was late on my expense report, she was really forgiving, all right? But I appreciated what she did and knew how much trouble she had to go through because, she dealt with a lot of unionized pipeline operators, expense reports that were wrong or late or whatever. And so it had to be stressful. I just, decided to drop in. Payroll clerk. 2 years ago, I was dealing with something that was really difficult, payroll related, that we had never dealt with a life insurance deal. I called Elizabeth at the previous company because I knew she had done it before. I was like, I left a voicemail. She calls me back the next day. She's like, I was so happy to hear your voice in my voicemail. What's going on? How can I help? Like, had I not just dropped in and had fun with the payroll clerks, does she return a phone call? And I didn't do it because I'm like, in 3 years, I'm probably going to be dealing with a life insurance thing and I'm going to have to call the payroll clerks. So I better drop in. Hi, Elizabeth. I'm just dropping in. And then, at a Financial Executives International, we did something for FEI and I was watching one of the speakers. They used this term. She said, I have an internal board of directors. I was like, that's fantastic. Like this internal board of directors that you're going to take something to get that guidance. I was like, and she would ask, who's your internal board of directors? And I asked you guys, who's your person? That's actually one of your internal board of directors, really. And I'm going to let them mentor me. Okay. There's a big difference between asking for guidance and asking for approval. Your mentors, the people that care for you, if you say, hey, I'm going to do this, and this is what I decided, what do you think? A mentor is not going to say, that's awful. They're going to be like, okay, well, good luck with that. Tell me how it works out for you. And they're going to be like, oh boy. But if you're like, hey, help me wrap my head around this. How would you approach this situation? And then they have an open-ended floor because now they know you haven't made any decisions yet because you wanted the guidance from them and they're going to open up to you and give you that. And so that's what I did is I got to have people around me outside of the company instant that I can call when I'm in a jam or knowing how to prepare for something, so I can get more wisdom at that because sometimes we don't know, right? So, but there's got to be people in our network that do know or have a good idea or how to think about it in a different way. All right. Obviously, I had a little bit of success at that energy company. I've been promoted to HR director and I'd been in the role for about 3 or 4 months. The CEO comes to me and we were PE backed. So owners were GE Financial and a French Canadian pension firm. And once a quarter, they fly in, all the C-suites go there and present. We usually had to provide all the data and be sitting at our computer, for a quick email under the table. And then we, send an attachment or whatever. And it's, so that was, and we were prepared, we're behind the scenes, right? CEO comes to me and said, hey, next quarter, you're presenting to the board. that's like a CHRO thing, or we've never like, I don't think we're allowed to be like in view of the board. Right? I'm just stunned. He's like, well, we have the pension changes and I want you to present the pension changes. Like, okay. I knew what the pension changes were. So he's like, so next quarter, this is the day, start preparing. Oh, is that 1-to-1 ratio? That was a lot bigger than that, right? So, and I mean, I get my benefits analyst on it. I was like, I need every graph, every piece of statistic, everything. Because I'm like, this is big time. So I start preparing, and I've got it. I mean, I still have it down. Okay, changes. We're closing the plan to new entrants. I'm like, you were the board. I was practicing. Hey, we're gonna close the plan to new entrants. It's gonna reduce our liabilities over the next 7 years with our turnover ratio. And we're changing the lump sum distribution factor from the PBGC rate to the RSC 417 rate, because the PBGC rate is resulting in an artificial inflated sum for the lump sum distribution. Isn't that exciting? You're a board. You're loving it, right? You're loving this guy. Right. So I'm practicing, I'm getting all that ready. I've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 slides, maybe, but I felt pretty good about what we were doing. I mean, it's $80 million pension. We got to do something about it. Right. So anyway, I call the mentor. I'm like, okay, I know someone that's been in a lot of these meetings. I'm going to call him. So I call him up. I was like, hey, I'll be honest with you. I was calling to brag a little bit. Half of it was bragging. I'm like, hey, so I'm presenting to the board, GE, and he's like, okay. So how do I wrap my head around this? Okay, classic question. He says, do you have to talk? And I'm like, I'm really confused. I'm like, I have to talk. Well, I'm presenting the pension changes. And he's like, that's not good. I was like, what? I was like, what? Why is it not good? And he says, as I cancel that call for my receptionist, our receptionist, but he says, let me tell you about board meetings. Board meetings are like passing the ball in football. A lot of things can happen and most of them are bad. He says, so here's what you're going to do. You need to say as few words as possible. As few words as possible. Better not have more than 1 slide. And I'm like, oh, crap. Better not have more than 1 slide. And then if they ask a question, hopefully it's a yes or no. You answer yes or no. This is the most important thing. You need to sit in a place where you can see your CEO, because your CEO is going to be giving you nonverbal clues, whether you're on the right track or you need to stop talking. If you see the nonverbal that you need to stop talking, stop talking. Hopefully nothing happens. That's a good board meeting. All right. Board meeting day. I was probably in that room for 5 minutes. 2 minutes was probably introductions. I don't even remember what I said. I mean, something about changes, reducing liabilities over the next 7 to 10 years. Do you have any questions? I think there was 1 question. I don't even remember whether it was a yes or no, but it was a yes or no. Look around. They're like, well, thank you, Jared. You can go now. I leave. I don't remember anything. It was very anticlimactic. I walk out. I'm like, that's a board meeting. So later on in the afternoon, the CEO calls me. And it's a Friday afternoon. And he says, hey, Jared, I just want to give you some feedback on the board meeting, because I like to give everyone obviously some constructive feedback. And I'm like, oh, crap. Man, I just completely missed it. I thought I was reading him. I didn't see this stop talking. I'm thinking this, I've got imposter syndrome, right? Like you were mentioning earlier. And so he says, and what I really like to do is give people very precise things they need to improve on for next time. I'm like, oh, here it comes. He set me up. He's like, and I'll be honest with you, Jared, I wouldn't want you to do that any different than the way you did it. He says, appreciate your preparation, your hard work. You have a great weekend. And hangs up the phone. I'm like, I have no idea what I did, because I didn't do anything. But what I thought, I was glad I called that guy, because I would not have done that. I had slides, I had the whole speech. I mean, I memorized it to the point that I can still say it to you all. I didn't say any of that stuff. But had I not reached out to that person, my internal board of directors, to get that guidance, I would have been a train wreck in there. Right. And as I learned, and what's funny is I was telling this story to Jim Calvetti at the firm. He's like, they let you speak? I'm like, yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. He's like, oh boy, you would have been at the back of the room in my board meeting. But it's that guidance, it's those relationships that just really pay off for you in the long run. And that's what Brian's talking about, is just reaching out and just saying, hey, I've got this going on. How do you wrap your head around it? Because it will change the way you process certain information. All right, so yes, sir. All right, so action steps. Okay, action steps. Welcome chaos. Say you're in the right place. All right, we're gonna actually practice it like we're a little cheesy. Say, I'm in the right place.
I'm in the right place.
Got to say it. You got to know it, because boy, it's gonna get nerve wracking. I was just doing a coaching meeting with one of our employees, and she mentioned to me, she said, I just really wish I would not get nervous before I talk to managers and partners. I was like, well, what's wrong with that? And so I talked with her about, it's okay. You're preparing for good performance. So you got to say that you're in the right place. Planning, 1-to-1 preparation ratio. Try it. If it doesn't work, email me. Say, Jared, you're crazy. It doesn't work. It's a waste of time. If you have a different experience, we'd love to hear about it. I have not heard anyone that, accosted me for giving that, but I would just, anything that you experience, if you make that change or try it, it'd be interesting. Relationships. And before you leave here, I suggest you do this. If it's been a while for your person or people, just text them. And there's your text. You can copy paste it. Hey, you came to mind during a presentation just now about mentors and relationships. Thank you for all you do. You're not asking them for anything. You're saying, hey, you know what? It came to the top of my mind. You ought to do that for your person that you thought about, because that they mean something to you and you care about them. They care about you. I would definitely text at least that person that message. Those are action steps right away that help you, not just get to the room where it happens, but also builds those behaviors that you can pass down to your middle managers and to the staff coming up about, hey, what's it take to get there? Right? Like, well, what's your network like? Who do you consult? Who do you talk to when you have a problem? You'd be surprised when you get down to the middle manager ranks and those senior associates, they've got nobody. They don't even think about talking to somebody else. Like, oh, wait, I need to reach out to people to ask for advice. I had an HR director for a large company in Houston reach out to me privately afterwards, says, man, I have nobody that I'll call. He said, I don't know, where to start. I'm like, and so I had to kind of coach him up about, okay, who's a person that, you think of when they said something that you learned something from? Oh, well, it was that person. I was like, when's the last time you talked to him? Like, last time I worked with him 4 years ago. I'm like, call them now, just to reach out and say, hey, I never really, gave you some appreciation. So put those action steps into place. Again, pay them forward. Some of you, I know you do them in spades, and that's why you're at where you're at. But this was a part of what I wanted to present to you guys, is like, hey, pay that forward, because those aren't my quotes. Those aren't my ideas. Those are just the executives that I had the privilege of working with that I wanted to share. And I imagine some of you probably wish some of your folks would do some of those things, or you recognize those in certain people. But really appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you guys and share stuff like this with you. So
Thanks for being here.